What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here, coming at today with the answers to my first Q&A. So before we get into that, guys, first of all I want to do shout outs as always. So shout outs to Leonardo Viana, a new subscriber. Thank you so much, you're the reason my channel is growing stronger. Okay, so naturally on my first Q&A video that I posted earlier, you guys posted down your questions. I've got them up here. Naturally, guys, as I've said in the past, I don't have a good screen recording software, which is why I don't do dueling book videos, so I'm just going to have to read the questions off my laptop from here. So, yeah. Okay, so these first 9 questions are from my good friend Express Gaming. Our first question is, what's your favourite foods? So, my favourite foods, they're probably... Barbecue ribs is definitely highly up there, and then ribs I also have to rank based on ones that I've had in the past. My mum's ones are very nice. In the past I've absolutely loved ribs from Frankie and Benny's, but probably the best ribs I've ever had were the ribs made by a family friend called Jeff, who lives in the States. He just did these barbecue ribs that was like properly slow cooked, just came right off the bone, good amount of sauce. It was just absolutely amazing. That was probably the best ribs I've ever had in my life, and I just wish I could have them again someday. And then other foods that I have up there, I am a huge fan of pizza, but within the past few years, guys, I've actually developed a lactose intolerance, so I just have to be very conservative of when I'm having it and what I'm having it with, so just so I don't get too sick or anything. And also I'm a huge fan of pasta just because it's such a nice, easy meal to prepare. Okay, question 2. What are your top 3 movies of all time? Oh, that's a tough one. So probably for number 3, I would have to say Dukes of Hazzard. I found that an extremely funny film when I first watched it. I still enjoy it to this day whenever I'm watching it. It's just a lot of fun and I really enjoy it. It's very funny. Yeah, I do love a good bit of comedy in a film. Number 2, I'd probably have to rank that as Hot Fuzz with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. That was just an absolutely brilliant film. Did make me cringe a bit the first time I watched it, but after a few times watching it, I just found it really enjoyable and funny. And it's always just a nice, good film for me to go into if I feel like just watching something and having a good laugh. And then number 1, I can't really rank as one individual film. I'd probably just have to give the number 1 spot to basically everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I absolutely love my Marvel films. Did recently see Thor Love and Thunder. That was absolutely amazing. Everything I wanted to see in a Thor film. Action, adventure, humor, romance. Basically everything you want in a Thor film, and it was just absolutely insane. Yeah, that was great. Okay, 3. What are your favourite places to visit, as in holidays? So some of my favourite holidays that I've done, I did talk a little bit about this in my book, but for those who have not read my book, so my best holidays were probably the trip I made to Chicago in 2017 with my dad. So I told my dad one of the trips I wanted to make was a trip to Chicago because I wanted to see them dye the river green on St. Patrick's Day. That was an absolutely amazing sight to behold. Absolutely loved the experience, and they just have such this amazing atmosphere on St. Patrick's Day. Anybody on my channel who's watching, say from the States, or more conveniently in Chicago, if you guys ever get the chance to, I would highly recommend going to see it. It is absolutely just a sight to see. And then other holidays I've had, trying to think. I've done a few around the world trips with my family as well. One of my favourite ones was probably a really good around the world trip we did, which was we started in Hong Kong, which was quite an interesting experience. There was such great food in Hong Kong, I really enjoyed that. Then from there we moved into Australia, got to go travel around a couple of the places in Australia, and I got to see some of my friends who were out in Adelaide. so it was really good to see them because I hadn't seen them in years. Then after that, I think it was, we moved to New Zealand. That was also quite nice, good atmosphere out there, nice people. And then from there, went to Fiji. It was just a nice different experience of being around on an island, and admittedly the heat was a bit much for me, but overall it was just a nice trip away. And then after Fiji, we ended in Los Angeles. So can't really complain. Love America. It's great. Probably my favorite thing about America is the food, because they really know how to do good food out there. So yeah, those are probably some of my favorite trips. Oh, and another one that's probably up there is just some of the cruises I've done around. I think one cruise I did was around Alaska with my parents. That was really good. Got to see lots of different places from around America and Canada, which was really nice. I got to meet some nice friends on the boat, a couple of whom I'm still in contact with now, which is really nice. And overall, it was just a very nice experience. Okay, question 4. Do you like any spicy foods? Yes, I am quite fond of my spicy foods. More recently, I've been trying to up my spice level at Nando's. I'm currently on hot, trying to get more used to that to see if I can try extra hot, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that point. But a bit of spice in food I do like. It's quite nice. Okay. Question 5. Is there anything in this year's Battles of Legends set you are looking into? So naturally in the TCG list has absolutely nothing confirmed yet, but based on the OCG set that it's based on, this is the one which has the support for the Poker Knights. It's also adding G-Golems, and I've forgotten some of the other one. I think it's got like some of the Dimension Dice stuff that Yugi used in the first series when he did the Dungeon Dice Monsters episodes against Duke Devlin. But honestly, there's not really too much in this year's Battles of Legend that particularly interests me, so I'm probably not going to invest in the set that much. Question 6. Favorite Star Wars characters? I don't really have specific favorite characters that I like in Star Wars. I just kind of like the series as a whole. I really enjoyed watching Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. That was really interesting. I liked a lot of the throwbacks that they did to the original show. Well, not the original show, the original films, which was really good. And Ewan McGregor is just an absolutely brilliant actor, so it was great to see him back in this role. Question 7. How many Starlight Rares do you own in total? So I had to do a small bit of prep for this beforehand, looking through my decks and my binders. The answer to that is I own 6 Starlight Rares. Those being, in order that I got them, Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, IP Masquerader, Salamangreat Pyro Phoenix. This isn't in any of my decks, but it is with my Salamangreat collection. Heavenly Dragon Mirror Dora. I just got this during a bulk trade with one of my friends. The Dark Charmer Gloomy. It was just one of those when I was trying to max rarity my deck, I decided to just go for it. And then Illusion of Chaos. This was part of another thing I did in a bulk trade when when a vendor I know was after my ulti ogres. So that was just part of the bulk trade, and I'm quite happy with it. So for now it's 6 of what I own. Am I going to get more? Possibly. 10 would be a nice number, but we'll see. 8. I like how you made your own custom Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Would you come up with a funny pot of tea card? So I did do a bit of prep in advance. I will send you the picture sometime after I've uploaded this video, but I will quickly read out what I came up with for this. Just going to bring it up here, so I'm just looking. So, Pot of Tea, I made it as a normal spell with this effect. At the start of your main phase 1, reveal 3 pot of spells with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly chooses one, add that card to your hand, also shuffle the rest into your deck. Then it becomes the standby phase of your next turn. You can only activate Pot of Tea once per duel. So I came up with this styled effect because I thought tea. So technically all the pot cards have names based around greed, because it's like you're trying to draw cards. But if this is a pot of tea, I have to try and think a bit around what would it do and how would that relate to its name. So I came up with the fact that with tea, there's so many different kinds of tea you can choose from. So I thought, why not make a pot card that searches other pot cards? And so that's how I came up with the effect on this one. And then kind of coming up with restrictions to make it accurate was a bit of a challenge. So I thought, well, let me think. If it's going to search other pot cards, if in an ideal situation for a deck that would actually play multiple pot cards, to give an example, a good deck might be, say, Flounderies, because they could very easily play Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Prosperity, and Pot of Duality, because the first two, they don't really care about the extra deck, and because they just do mass amounts of normal summoning on the opponent's turn whenever they summon a monster. They don't really care about their special summoning either. And also a lot of stun decks play multiple pot cards as well, because again, they don't really care about their extra deck or their ability to special summon. So I thought this could be a good way to do so. And because naturally I know Pot of Extravagance also has the clause that it has to be activated at the start of your main phase 1, I put it into the Pot of Tea effect that it skips ahead to your standby phase, so that you go immediately into the start of your main phase 1 on your next turn, so that you can. So if by any chance you did hit Pot of Extravagance, you can just activate it straight away. Yeah. And then the last question you asked me was, what kind of animals do you like seeing at the zoo? I actually don't really like going to the zoo because I'm not actually a huge fan of animals. Additionally, most zoos are very outdoorsy, which isn't really my thing, so I don't really go there. I do, however, quite like aquariums every now and then. And probably my favourite things to see there are sharks. When I was growing up, I was really into sharks. I still kind of am. Kind of wish I was thinking about going into building the shark deck, but I never really got around to it. It's just not really that. Just couldn't really figure out a good build for it, so I never really got into it. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of what I really like most. And then keep up the great work on this channel, bud. It's nice to see you're doing a Q&A now. I hope these questions are all good. Yes, those were all very good questions. I enjoyed doing them. So thank you very much, Express Gaming. And like I said, I will send you the picture of the pot of tea once I'm all done with this. Okay, next set of questions are from, again, and guys, I apologize in advance if I completely bodge up these names. Overlord Opacus. So your first question was, what is your opinion on the current Yu-Gi-Oh format? So I'm not really paying too much attention to the proper meta-based format of huge tournaments. I mean, I did watch the recent bits of the North American YCS, so I saw a bit of that, but I don't really know too much about what's in the form of the proper competitive format, but I just basically know the competitive format of what I've got with my locals. And at my locals, it's kind of very diverse right now. Everyone's playing lots of different things, so I'm finding it quite interesting. It's also making it a bit difficult trying to figure out my side deck as well, because it's like everyone's playing so many different strategies, so I'm like, I don't really know what I can play that can contribute to countering all these different strategies. So I'm just enjoying I'm kind of just enjoying the challenge of it at my locals recently, so that's pretty good. 2. Do you think Servant of Endymion should still be on the limited list? I don't really like giving too many opinions based on cards on the list because it can sum up so much controversy between people. But to give an opinion on this, I don't really care if Servant's on the limited list or not, because Frankly, when she was at 3, yes, it was a bit more consistent, but when she got hit to 1, it gave me more space in my deck that I can play other things that make it a bit more personal to me. Frankly, I've kind of just moved on from the point of playing 3 Servant. Like, if she was to come back to 3, I would probably play 3 just because it ups consistency, but frankly, I don't really care too much if she comes back to 3 or not. And for anyone and in my personal opinion, if anyone still thinks she needs to be at 3, you may just have been playing a little too much Master Duel. But frankly, she can come to 3, she can stay at 1, I don't really care. And then 3, what will you be playing after Power of the Elements? Now this is a semi-vague question. I can understand you probably mean, am I going to be picking anything up from Power of the Elements, and if I'm going to be building any decks around the stuff in that. But simultaneously, the question could also just be generally after Power of the Elements, what am I going to be playing? But naturally, there is so much additional stuff that's going to be coming out after Power of the Elements, particularly in the next several years, some of which we don't even know about yet. So, not going to answer too much into that, other than the fact that after Darkwing Blast, I am thinking of playing Draco Slayers, because with the newer support, they look a lot more interesting. But specifically based around Power of the Elements, after that, I'm just going to be playing the same decks that I'm already playing, because frankly, there is absolutely nothing in Power of the Elements that interests me. I mean, I've also just checked this morning as well, they've now fully updated the list with like the imports as well. Yeah, there's literally no cards in this set that particularly interest me too much. The only card I might be interested in is like the new spell card. I've forgotten its name, but it's the one where it's like you send an extra deck monster to shuffle away the same extra deck monster type that you just sent, because that could open up some interesting tech ideas. But honestly, other than that, there's really not anything I'm too after in Power of the Elements. I don't really care. I'm not really too fussed about the whole Splite, or I think it's called Sprites now. I don't know why. I mean, yes, I kind of understand they do look like sprites, but I don't really see the purpose of why they needed to change the name for like one letter. Whatever. But yeah, in terms of after Power of the Elements, probably just going to be doing the same stuff. I'm not really too focused about anything on the current set. I'm more interested in Darkwing Blast. But I find that's usually how it is with sets in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. Usually they'll do one set, there's like nothing. Usually when there's like one set where there's nothing that particularly interests me, I kind of just blank it, and then the next set I'm like, ooh, yes, I want stuff from here. Which is kind of how it was in the last format as well. When Burst of Destiny came out, there was like not really very much that interested me. It was like, then it's like Dimension Force, yes, hit me up with all of this. Now it's kind of back onto Power of the Elements, and I'm like, whatever. And now next set, Darkwing Blast, I'm like, ooh, Draco Slayer support. I'm interested in this. I'm also potentially interested in the Black Wings, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Okay, next question is from Omar CU or Ku. I don't actually know what that is. I don't actually know how that's pronounced. Again, apologies. Who's asked, will you do an updated Endymion list? Yes, I will do. I'm just currently in the position of trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I tried out my recent idea in my last tournament of playing the Small World package. It was okay, but it wasn't really amazing. It did brick a little bit because of some of the targets I was playing. But guys, in all honesty, I just wanted to do it because I wanted to play Apex Avian, because he's a giant negating chicken. I mean, I did get to Apex Avian against one opponent, which was nice, but unfortunately I didn't have enough follow-up to do anything about that game. But still, it was just kind of fun, just to play Apex Avian again. But yeah, back to the main point. Once I figure out all these changes, get the deck back into position I'm happy with, because naturally we're about to go into Power of the Elements and come up into August as well, so there's like possibly an impending ban list coming up, so just want to wait a bit, see how the format plays out, make my adjustments, maybe wait for the list, then I'll probably give another update. And last set of questions are from my good friend DarkRegician84. With the first question of, after watching your tribute video for Kazuki Takahashi, I was wondering if you had any plans for bringing back any of the following decks you played in the past. Pure Mythical Beast. I have no intention to bring back Pure Mythical Beast because, frankly, they have such good synergy with Endymion, there's not really any reason I would want to play them pure. Though I will say, Richie, if this is your attempt to try and get me to stop playing Endymion, it's a very nice try, but you're going to have to try harder than that. Evil Hero, current or past format, although I think I know the answer. I don't really have any intentions in bringing back Evil Heroes. Don't get me wrong, it's a very good deck. I enjoy. It's probably one of my favorite decks from the GX era. My issue is back in the past format when I first got into the deck, that was like Dark Gaia OTK. I mean, that was such a fun deck playing on the DS, but it's just so orientated on having so many specific cards in order to work. Basically, I have to have Raviel, Valkyrian the Magna Warrior, and some way to fuse them both, and then also the Infernal Gainer to let me attack twice with my 7500 Dark Gaia, which, don't get me wrong, is a lot of fun, but it's past format, and back then it was just so difficult getting all the right cards, despite the fact in that time Foolish Burial was at 3, which wasn't so bad, which made the Dark Calling easier. But getting the materials into your hand, but just getting access to the materials was a lot of hassle. And in regards to like current format Evil Heroes, yes, they're a lot better, but again, the deck's kind of just like do a bunch of fusion summoning, wipe your opponent's board with Bane, and then just OTK. After a while, you just get kind of bored of OTKing your opponent, which is kind of why I stopped playing the deck. So I don't really have any intentions in bringing Evil Heroes back. As much as I do like the archetype, I just don't really feel like playing it as much anymore. Next one you asked about was Cyberdark. Cyberdark's just one of those decks that, again, I really enjoy playing it, but it's just such an iffy thing. Like, current format, when I played it with these stuff from this Cyberstar Succession deck and combining it with Cyber Dragons, like, it was pretty decent, but the problem with that variant was you essentially only do one thing, which was mill out your extra deck, go into Cyberdark End Dragon, and then just smack your opponent with a 10k dragon, which got kind of boring. If I think back into past format, probably the best past format variant I played of it was back during Grass. Oh, that Grass Look Screen format, that was decent, because I could just mill the materials, impact them back, equip a dragon from my grave, and then my graveyard's loaded up with a stupid amount of monsters that I can just smack, which was quite fun. But if I want to rebuild that, then I have to go back to playing a 60 card deck, and 60 card decks aren't fun to shuffle, and I don't want to do that. Additionally, it's a grass deck, and back in then, nobody really likes playing against a grass deck. So, don't really feel like doing a current format one with like the Cyber Dragons, and I don't really feel like doing a past format one. Another option I could do, however, was back to another variant that I did, which was combining it with Danger as like a graveyard mill spam deck, in which I was playing Berserker Soul, because using Cyberdark Edge with a stupid highly monster ratio in your deck. So Cyberdark Edge smack directly for its half damage, usually around somewhere below 1500, and just Berserker Soul and attempt to mill out as many monsters as possible and deal a high amount of burn. I still remember that one game I did against you and I actually resolved Berserker Soul for 8 cards and burnt you for 4k. That was fun. I could very easily consider redoing that specific variant with Berserker Soul, because that was a lot of fun, but my issue with Cyberdark is that they're just a little bit slow, so I'm not entirely sure. I will think about it, but right now I'm just very happy with my high rarity Cyberdark sitting in my binder looking pretty. Next deck you asked about was the Dark Paladin deck that you had that ran pendulums, including Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. So that was essentially a Buster Blader Pendulum variant after the structure deck came out, which was around Breakers of Shadow. At least I think it was around Breakers of Shadow. Yeah, it was Breakers of Shadow. So it was alright. But if I rebuild that variant, then I'm just essentially just playing another variant of Pendulum, and I've already got 2 main Pendulum decks, my Plunder Patrols, and I'm planning to build Draco Slayer as well. Yes, I am pretty much known as a Pendulum player, but sometimes I like just playing something a bit different. Sometimes I like not playing Pendulum in something. And honestly, and so, frankly, I don't really have any intentions in building the deck back, because then, like I said, I'm just playing another variant of Pendulum Magician Odd Eyes. Don't really want to do another one of those. And then, last one you asked about was Blackwing. I will probably take a look at some builds after there's more details from Darkwing Blast and some like OCG builds start showing up with support from Darkwing Blast. I might take a look into that, see if I want to go back into Blackwings again. But I've found over the past few years I've just kind of gone off playing synchro decks, because it just doesn't really seem as much as my thing. But I'm not entirely sure. Maybe the new Blackwing support might give me another shot with them, but we'll see. And then your second question was, I remember asking you if you were going to make a Buster Blader deck last time you did a Q&A. I think you said you were thinking about it. Have there been any plans on making one since then? See, when I noticed that you posted questions on my Q&A, I had a suspicion you were going to ask me about Buster Blader. So, and usually I will give you the answer that, like, I'm working on it and I'm figuring it out, but over the past few months, I've basically come to the decision I don't really want to have a go with it. This is just on 2 primary reasons of, like, one, when the support first got released, I was so hyped for this, but then the deck just turned out to be kind of average and kind of too based around having certain plays on board, having too many specific cards in play for it to work well. And also when I start looking at builds of it now, basically all the Buster Blader builds right now are basically Dragon Buster locks, which is so boring. I just don't really want to be that blind that's just doing a Dragon Buster lock of locking my opponent out the extra deck. Additionally, if I wanted to lock my opponent out the extra deck, I just go back to playing a Morphage, because a Morphage can do it much more consistently, and they do other kinds of fun floodgates as well, which is just good fun for annoying my opponent. But that's another deck that nobody likes to play against, so currently no plans to rebuild either of those. And that is it for all the questions. I'm just going to give it a quick refresh to see if anything's been added, just in case. Loading, and nope, that is all the questions. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and feel free to leave your questions down below for the next Q&A episodes. I'll be doing these every Wednesday, either around between midday to early afternoon, so get your questions in before then. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.